Everybody wants to be able to make a difference, to contribute something, to earn enough, and we have different definitions of what enough is, and that's going to be another challenge for this generation.
Hi, I'm Mitchel Hochberg, and you're watching The Current. Last week, student fellows from universities around the country came to Georgetown's campus for the Millennial Values Symposium, an event organized around the release of a survey regarding the values of 18 to 24-year-olds in the United States on issues ranging from sexuality to the recession. First, we're going to hear the fellows' thoughts on the challenges facing their generation. Then we're going to hear from Colin Steele, a Millennial Values fellow, on what he calls the Millennial American Dream. And finally, I'll be joined by Zoë Lillian, a fellow millennial and member of our current team, to discuss what we've heard. First, let's hear the fellows' thoughts on their generation.
I think we're a lot more tolerant, and I think that's probably because we're so diverse and we've had the opportunity to have technology sort of bursting in our face all the time and new ideas constantly coming up and being thrown at us, from Coney 2012 to Barack Obama's 15-minute campaign video. We're constantly assailed with information.
The onset of the information revolution and this generation's sort of exploitation of technology has had huge and profound consequences on our access to information, our global perspectives, and really the potential for our, collective action within democracy.
Yeah, I think my main concern is that since we have such fast information available, a lot of people can just read about things and say that they're well informed, but not actually do anything about it.
We as a generation think that watching a YouTube video or liking a Facebook status or retweeting a 140-character blurb is going to have some major impacting political change. And so I think that we've got to be very careful and very cognizant that we are sort of following up our ideas with our actions.
One of the other bloggers pointed out that it's now cool to be a humanitarian, or at least look like one, and even if we sometimes criticize what another one called the slacktivism of this generation. We get real excited about one thing. Let's say it's Joseph Kony, right? So we have Kony 2012, and there's a week when that's all anybody's ever talking about, and then a week later nobody remembers who Kony is or where he's from.
I'm here with Colin Steele, who is a senior in the School of Foreign Service here at Georgetown and a Millennial Values Fellow. Colin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
You were at the Millennial Values Symposium, and you were there for the release of the survey that talked about the values of this generation. Was there anything that really surprised you in the survey results?
The things that surprised me and somewhat worried me were, one, the reluctance of young, white, often Protestant, i.e. advantaged millennials, to see opportunity in this century for our generation. It's mostly white millennials who are worried about reverse discrimination being an issue. It's mostly white millennials who don't think that we're going to have equal or better access to employment and education and income as our lives go forward, whereas most minority millennials think that the future is wide open to them.
And why do you think that is?
I think it's because, frankly, the advantaged millennials are at the top of the heap. And in a 1% era, the 1% isn't quite sure how to keep going up from here. We've tried the subprime thing. There's not a lot more money to pull out of that. So can I really outdo my parents? I don't know. And that can be a little scary. And so for the privileged millennials who are worried about the future, I think we're going to have to do a lot of hand-holding, both amongst ourselves and across the divides of class or advantage, to say it's okay, we can welcome the new ones, the emerging groups in, because again, this is going to be a minority-majority country within our generation's lifetime. We're going to see that change happen, and we're going to oversee it, and we've got to do it right. We're only going to get one chance.
So traditionally, people talk about the American dream, and there's a sense that it belonged to everybody equally. But from what you're saying, it's almost like there's the privileged American dream, and then there's another version of it. Do you think that that it's splintered in some ways?
I think it has splintered, and I think that in some ways it's not working for anybody. Because if we dig into the white privileged statistics in the Millennial Values Symposium or the Millennial Values Survey, that people who look and sound and go to schools like me are worried about our future, I think that says that our conception of the American dream is at least equally screwed up, even though we are sort of at the pinnacle of the American dream as is. We do need to figure out how to let those who are already in the top 1, 5, 10%, however many, figure out how to advance in a way that helps everybody else. But we also need to get the American dream back down to the level of the immigrant, the emerging socioeconomic strata, and let those people have equal access to the immense resources of this country.
So if there is an American dream that unites across socioeconomic divides, a millennial American dream, what is it?
Everybody wants to be able to make a difference, to contribute something, to earn enough. And we have different definitions of what enough is, and that's going to be another challenge for this generation. And so I think for our generation, the American dream is going to have to be revised somewhat to be a dream about, as one of my professors here would say, you and me in the context of us. How is my dream and your dream related? And that's related perhaps even across national borders. It's certainly related across state lines and across socioeconomic lines.
Colin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
So Zoe, I thought it was really interesting, this idea of clicktivism or slacktivism, where people will go online on Facebook, will watch a video or like a page, and then not do anything else to further a cause. Our generation in many ways identifies big lofty goals or ideals for ourselves, for the world, and we kind of forget, I think the internet helps us forget, that the way you achieve a goal is not by looking at it, it's not by watching a video about what should happen, but doing like nitty-gritty, boring work.
And I think that really ties into the whole issue of like the American dream and how people aren't believing it anymore, because I definitely think that a lot of people in the United States feel entitled to this American dream to absolute success as long as you put in the hard work. But people are no longer realizing what the hard work actually is. You only see the end goal and you think that you can just go there in a straight line. And that's absolutely not the case.
Yeah, I think there's like a certain humility to the American dream almost, where in order to believe in it, in order to achieve it, you need to be humble and realize that you don't get to start out being the best. I don't know if it's a problem of class issues in terms of lacking that humility, or if it's the way we think about America as a whole as an unrivaled superpower, is the greatest thing in the world, where we don't really perceive ourselves as having any peers to compete against.
And that has to do with the individualism of the country and how people kind of see individual success as like the end all be all as opposed to collective success. And if we were all collectively successful, then all the individuals would be successful as well, right? But that's not something people think about. They think about me and how I have to get there on top.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because what could make our generation unique is getting that you can't always have it your way. Hopefully the formative experiences of our generation, things like 9/11, the financial crisis, kind of this deadlock we've had in Congress, are all kind of lessons that if you believe too strongly in one ideology and if you don't take others' opinions into account, you can have catastrophic consequences.
Yeah, well, this was really interesting to talk about.
Yeah, it was
Mitchel.
a great conversation.
Great.
Thanks for joining me, Zoe.
Thanks for having me, Mitchell.
That is the end of our episode. I'm Mitchel Hochberg, and you've been watching The Current.